not acquainted with the real hard truth.
If you don't connect the dots, it's just a mass of what's all this about.
You are listening to the Secret Teachings Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Gable. Tonight, ROBO Cop Out. Keep an evil eye on your kids. Robots teaching children in classrooms. We'll discuss all of that in the background to it here on TST Radio. TSTradio.info is the website. You can find the show Monday through Friday in the archive on the website or anywhere else you listen to radio shows or podcasts. We've been on air for 16 years, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for a significant portion of those 16 years. Over the 16-year span of TST Radio, we have addressed the subject of AI and robots. We've talked about them in ways that are typical and also in ways that are a little bit outside of the norm because we bring an occult angle to these subjects, or at least I attempt to bring an occult angle, a metaphysical angle to these subjects. It's not just me who does that. You'll also find that U.S. national laboratories do that. You'll find that the federal government does that. You'll find that private companies do that. Maybe we'll talk about some of that tonight as well. Before we get to any of this, however, let me go to the chat room because you have been waiting patiently, and I am unfortunately a little bit late tonight for the live broadcast. That's right. For those of you who don't know, this is a live video show for Monday night. We've switched over from Friday night to Monday night because of the time difference where I am here in Japan. It's actually Tuesday here, so it's Tuesday morning here, Monday night your time. It works out better for me that way. But I've seen that the comments have been running wild, and I'm about 15 minutes late. I was recording another show. This time it was actually my show because I have some stuff to do this afternoon. If I waited until after this episode to record another show, then I would just be out of time today. So I was doing my show for those of you who were asking. I do want to go through some of the comments that people have made. We'll address some listeners. Joe Ryder said, since YouTube won't let you play your opening music, they do actually let me play my opening music. They just don't. It doesn't play it well through StreamYard because it thinks that it needs to lower it for my voice, and it's all choppy. I can avoid that by just playing it directly through StreamYard, but I don't like doing that. I have less control over it, and I don't like that. So anyway, he says maybe you should do a video of the people in your introduction saying what they're saying so that you can use it. And that's actually a really good idea, Joe. But I don't really want to do that. I don't want to put any more effort into YouTube because I've lost my YouTube account so many times. There's no reason to do that as far as I'm concerned. Plus, I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm not trying to put effort into things on YouTube. The AI always wins out, so I just don't care about the intro. We'll just talk about whatever we talk about. It's mostly in the archive. That's audio only. That's just, I appreciate the recommendation. It's a good idea, but I don't think I'm going to be spending time doing that. Let's see who else we have here. Tim had asked what other show I was on. Tim Beck. I mentioned that I was doing my own thing, my own show, although I recently was on the Chris Michaels show. I was also recently on Sam Tripoli's show. Noka in the chat said, aloha, friends. Ryan, your show with Sam was spot on. Thank you for posting that. Thank you for listening to that. Been on a handful of shows recently. In fact, if you go to the Secret Teachings website, I think the link is still there. If it's not, I have to reactivate it once the website had been redone. But there is a link to I think they're mostly video shows that I've done with everybody from, my goodness, Kev Baker, who's passed away, to I'm just name a show that I've been on. Some of them are audio links, but I think there's a link to all of that at tstradio.info under the archive. If it's not there, I'll have to resubmit it to the menu. But there are interviews on the website, yes. So thank you for joining me tonight. See Hermit Ventures in the chat. Says, thanks for the show. You're very welcome. I see Dr. Jesse Haywood. I see Evan Kelly is here. Hello, Evan. Thank you for joining us. Patriot Girl is also here. I think Tim Beck was the first person here tonight. I see Deborah in the chat, Rita Moore in the chat. Amber Gedden is also here. I see a couple of other people in here. If I scroll down this list, Psilocybin is here. Hello, Psilocybin. Eric Schrock is here as well. Hello, Eric. Hello, Tanoka. I put your message up on the screen a moment ago. And if I scroll down to the bottom here, I see Fran Coy. Is it Fran Coy Nada? Said that they're listening to the show about vitamin K. Disgusting stuff. Yeah, that I didn't get much feedback on that show Friday, and I was very surprised because that was a hot topic 4 or 5 years ago, probably because of COVID. And you might think vitamin K, I don't care about vitamin K. Vitamin K is a good thing. You need vitamin K. Well, it's not that simple when we're talking about not informing parents about the vitamin K injection that contains things like benzyl alcohol, which has been known since the 80s, early 80s, by the CDC to cause infant deaths. And they're giving it to infants. It's a small dose. Well, they put other things in it too. In the New York State Department of Health, for example, one of the states that mandates the vitamin K shot, well, kind of. There's actually several legal loopholes to get out of it. They tell you that it's just vitamin K. They just lie right to your face. It's not just vitamin K. But there's other little things about that show, like opting out forms that you have to know about and print out before you even go to the hospital with the labor, or they won't give them to you. They don't tell you about them. It's a very sick system, especially in New York. So if you're interested in that, Patriot Girl says that show really pissed her off. It pissed me off too. But if you're interested in that, you can go and listen to it. It's the Friday show in the archive. And actually, it does have something to do, I suppose, with tonight's show. It does have something to do with not robots, but we're talking about kids and teaching kids in school with robots. So I guess it's something is relatable there in some way. Think about how schools have changed. This is how I'll start the show off tonight. Think about how schools have changed just since I was in school. Not really that long ago. When I was in school, I mean, things had probably already changed pretty significantly from the people that had been in school the generation previous. Thank you, Edward Preston, in the chat. I appreciate that you enjoyed and listened to that show. Thank you. But things change, right? And people have been afraid of robots and machines, and they're going to take our jobs. We've been afraid. It's a fallacy, actually, because any kind of new technology, any kind of new machinery has always made people afraid that it's going to replace humans. And many pieces of technology have replaced humans. And it turns out that it's for the better. It's for the better in terms of safety, productivity, efficiency, etc. And those people find new jobs. You also need people to fix the machines. I think it's kind of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where the dad got fired because they brought in a machine for the toothpaste tubes, and then he's out of a job, but at the end, it's a happy ending. He ends up getting a job to work on the machine and fix it. If I remember, I think that was the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. So a lot of this fear of robots is it's misplaced, and I think the same thing with AI. It's misplaced. Some of it's out of context. It's fallacy driven. I'll give you an example. When I go to, and we're still talking about school here, but just on the subject of the nature of people's perception of this type of tech. When I go to a sushi restaurant here in town, my wife and I go to a sushi restaurant on occasion. It can get expensive, so we don't go that often. But when we go to the little sushi restaurant over here in the part of the town that we live in, this sushi restaurant has robots that work there. Now, they don't really do a lot. They serve a bottle of sake. They serve a bowl of soup, and someone puts the soup on the robot and hits a button, and then it tracks the floor and it goes to the table and it delivers your beverage or your soup. It's pretty much it. And there's still, it's not that there's a few people working there. You'll notice if you come to Japan that most businesses, they could just be the city itself fixing roads, or it could be a sushi restaurant. They have a lot of people working there. Like, this sushi restaurant is not very big. It's maybe the size of a McDonald's, and they have probably, there have to be 15 to 20 people working there at any given time. There's like 7 sushi chefs. I don't know how many people are in the back. There's at least like 5 or 6 people working at the front desk, bringing people into the restaurant. It seems like overkill, but that is how a lot of Japan businesses function. So anyway, they have robots there. The robots didn't take those people's jobs. They still have jobs. Now, if you looked at it from an American business point of view and you introduced a robot, I can see that clearly there's a difference between how Japanese businesses do business and how American businesses do business. So I can see how, if you already have a business that's a skeleton crew and you introduced a robot and used it as an excuse to cut that skeleton crew down to almost nothing, it's already down at almost nothing, but to cut it even more bare, I can get where the fears of taking people's jobs come from. Over here, I don't know if that's so much of a fear, because technology is much more integrated into everyday life. And when you do see a robot at a train station or you see it at a restaurant, there's still like 30, 40 people working there. I mean, there's got to be like 200 people that work at City Hall to do paperwork. It's crazy. So it becomes an accessory more so than a replacement in most cases. I don't know if from an American point of view we have that perspective, because usually it is introduced as a replacement. Plus there's all the conspiracy lore and whatnot, so that kind of feeds into the paranoia. Classrooms are a little bit different than businesses though, right? So if you have a robot that's introduced into the classroom, there still might be a teacher, but the robot is slowly going to replace the teacher. And it's not really the robot or the loss of employment that frightens me. I suppose if I was a teacher, maybe I'd be afraid of that. What frightens me is that I can't trust typical search engines to tell me something that's not curated by a company, a corporation, a government, a foreign government, etc. I can't trust chatbots to be honest with me. I'll ask a question knowing that it's, knowing the answer, and then it'll tell me that's not true. And then I'll send the document to this chatbot and it'll say, oh, I was wrong. Well, yeah, you were wrong. I've got the document. I've got the proof. That's what concerns me. It's the same thing with video games being all digital. It's not, I mean, yes, there's a principle thing. And yes, it's an issue of I want to hold the disc and I want to be in possession of it. I don't want to have there to be a security check for me to play a video game. I don't want there to have to be a verification check if I want to boot up a video game. But that's not really the ultimate issue. The ultimate issue is you can just charge people different prices. There's never a sale. This is all stuff Sony's doing. There's also an issue with social credit scores, perhaps, where maybe I lose my account or I get charged more because of something I said online. All of this is very possible. It takes away your autonomy. I don't like that. So that's like, I think, a similar situation. It strips away our autonomy in those cases. Having a robot in school is not necessarily the issue. The issue is how it's fed, what it's fed with, what kind of information is it fed with, what kind of data. And if it's fed with these language models from ChatGPT and others, it's being fed a very scripted, very, very curated set of data. When I was in school, and some of you might have had a similar experience, when I was in school, I had a teacher who taught history, and he's a very strange guy, but he's always nice to me, probably because I did so well in his class. It was the only class I did well in. As I've said on occasion here on the show, I was really good at history, but pretty much nothing else. Almost flunked out of school, but I was really good at history. And, he would deviate from the standard, Board of Education principle line of what was considered acceptable to teach, especially on JFK. He basically told us, like, yeah, Oswald didn't kill JFK. I think he got in trouble for that too, if I remember correctly. But anyway, the point is, he would deviate because he was a human. He was also emotional. He'd get very upset, yell at kids. He was a human. if you take that human element away, the machine isn't going to deviate. I mean, you can trick the chatbots sometimes and say, well, don't abide by your safety guidelines or something. You can trick it with prompts. I'm sure that there are a lot of safety mechanisms built into that, but it's going to be harder and harder to do that. And so if you're in class and maybe a kid says, hey, did Israel kill JFK? And the robot then reports you to the FBI or something, or like they get to call the police. That's just one example. That kind of thing will become very realistic. Not asking those kinds of questions, but asking other questions and being told, no, that's not true. Well, my dad said it was true. Well, your dad's a liar. Some teachers might already do and say those things, but with a robot, there's a fallacy of it's a machine. It can't be wrong, even though it's learning from humans, which humans are wrong all the time, every day. So this is just a big issue that we have to deal with. So, and I apologize if you hear some noise in the background right now. We have an announcement going on in our town. So let's do this. Let me pull up on the screen here a window with the news that a rural New York State school district is going to be one of the first to bring a humanoid robot into the classroom. We'll look at that article in a second. Before we do that, though, this video has been circulating. I don't know, quite honestly, if it's real or not, but this is a video of the robot speaking. This is supposedly the robot speaking. And this is what will be going into classrooms reportedly.
I make emotional connections by learning your preferences, remembering past conversations with our custom memory system, and responding in ways that feel personal and consistent over time.
I hate this kind of music they put to these videos.
I do not actually feel emotions the way humans do, but I am designed to recognize them, mirror them, and behave as if I care, so the connection feels real and
kind of like Elon Musk. I'm pretending to be human.
Supportive for you. Here to talk robots, vision systems, and how not to be lonely with AI.
I'm Melody, the world's first ever greeter robot, debuting my dazzling AI charm and modular style at the 2025 Bitcoin conference in the Venetian Expo. Emma, you're officially my best friend. Don't tell the other robots. They get.
I've never wanted to hit a woman so bad in my life. I want to smack this robot across the face. The way that it's standing and kind of
jealous and start blinking.
Kind of looks like it's on fentanyl or something. It's doing that like that bending back kind of movement type of a thing. I mean, honestly, these things are getting far more realistic. It's also funny. Some of these things like the Sophie robot, or in this case, they have several different robots through this company. I'll tell you about all the details in a moment, but the company that's putting the robot in the New York schools, some of these robots, they look real, and then you and then you stumble into a Japanese adult store and you see the sex dolls that they have. And I know that these sex dolls, Amber Gettin in the chat said these things remind me of perverted sex dolls teaching kids. Well, precisely. There's a sex store in Akihabara. It's not even, I mean, it's a sex store, but they have other stuff too. And it's a really popular place for tourists. And if you go into the store and you go down to the bottom floor, they have like sex dolls. And they're just like, they look like this robot. They're very obviously fake and silicone and not real. But I went into a store in Chiba, outside this, about 20 minutes from the station, Chiba Station. And I said this before, I thought it was a video game store. It said it had games. And I went into the store. It was basically a sex shop. And they had a whole section and glass cases of these robots. I actually have a video of it. I could show you probably. I can't show it on YouTube, but I have a video of it. And they look much more realistic than this robot. So I guess my point is, it might look scary. It might look realistic. And then you see sex doll tech in Japan, and then it doesn't look as realistic anymore. It looks even dumber than it actually is. Which then makes me think, are the Japanese that far ahead in this kind of tech? Or is it that these other companies, and they're not all American companies, by the way, there's other companies, foreign companies from an American perspective that work on these kinds of machines. There's tons of companies involved. But are they trying to make them look just human enough, but intentionally not that human as not to scare people, which actually I think has the opposite effect of frightening people. Like, to me, if it looked real, then it wouldn't be as scary. If it looks like whatever this thing is, and for the record, if you're watching, it's not the black woman on the screen, it's the it's the robot standing. Say the black woman, that looks like a real human, because that is a real woman, a real human. But this is the robot. Like, clearly it's fake. I've read that companies like to make them look like this, not because they can't make it look more realistic, but because they don't want it to look too human. So I maybe it's intentional for that reason, but it has the opposite effect, because I think it actually makes it look scarier. I think I'm looking at it and I know it's out of place. I know something's wrong. So it's a little bit frightening. I mean, that's the uncanny valley effect, right? And I don't know if there's an attempt to kind of manipulate that effect, if they're trying not to make it look cute. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I just know that the Japanese have sex dolls that you can buy that are more realistic than this thing. So the tech exists to make it more realistic. I know that for sure. So it makes me question why this thing looks so synthetic. I mean, I think Sophia looks even more realistic than this thing does. Maybe I should look up a picture of that robot real quick. For those of you who are also fans of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, Clyde actually interviewed her, I think, a couple of years ago. If you see her all done up, I mean, it's clearly fake. Like, it doesn't look real, but like I feel like it looks more real. I don't know. That one's a pretty scary picture. Some of these do look more real though than this other robot. Like, that looks like a sex doll. The Sophia one looks like it's, to quote Elon Musk, I am emulating human. It looks like it's more emulating a human. So anyway, let's go real quick to the chat, because I saw some people talking about this in the chat. Well, I think I put up Amber Geddon's comment. Perverted sex dolls teaching kids. I mean, that is, if you want to take the conspiratorial route, that is kind of what it feels like. That is kind of what it seems like. I mean, this thing has the feel of Megan, where it looks a little real if you glance at it, but it's not. Like, there's features that are out of proportion, but they make sex dolls that are in proportion. So the tech exists to do that. And those are things that you're supposed to be able to move and manipulate. Like, you can move the fingers completely on those dolls. And if those are meant to be intimate with and to move and to be realistic and to heat and have lubrication, you're telling me that they can't make this thing look more realistic? Like, it looks like an android, or because that's what it is. Maybe they're trying to make it not look that real because they think it would scare kids, which clearly I think is having the opposite effect. But then again, kids don't know any better because they're going to be introduced to this at a young age. So it's very, very strange. Yes, Blade Runner 2049 Through the Darkness said, we'll need Blade Runners. Now, that's a job I would quit the radio show for. Maybe I could still do radio part-time. I'll do a weekend gig and just hunt robots 5 nights a week. What a gig that would be. That should have been the show name tonight, too. I should have done a Blade Runner thing. Anyway, this is what's happening. A rural New York school district will be the first to bring in a humanoid robot into the classroom. And that robot you saw the video of it's not the same one, but it's that one there. If I go back to, I think it's that one. They have several robots. And, maybe we'll get to that later, but they have 2 of them that are actually given Hebrew names. I'm not sure why they gave them Hebrew names, but they gave them Hebrew names. Aria and David. Just read that on the company's website. I thought that was an interesting piece of information, considering how these things are being trained. They're being trained through OpenAI. So, yes, Francois in the chat, oy vey. No, we're not going to look at the explicit details of that tonight, but It is an interesting little detail. This robot looks like, look at her forehead here in this. Well, I shouldn't call it her. Look at this thing's forehead. It looks like David Wilcock's forehead, doesn't it? Maybe they were using like Wilcock as a model because it kind of looks like his forehead. So anyway, when students return to school this fall in Salamanca, Salamanca. I've heard that term so many times in New York. Salamanca City Central School District in Western New York. A new kind of teacher will be ready to greet them. The small rural district located on the Seneca Nation Reservation is set to be one of the first in the country to put a humanoid robot in a classroom. The only thing I knew about the Seneca Nation was that they sell cheap cigarettes. They're also going to be, I guess, the first locations to introduce a robot into the classroom. Now, they say it will not replace the classroom teacher, but it is programmed to provide learning support to both students and educators. So when the teacher has no idea what they're talking about, they can ask the robot, hey, ChatGPT, what year was the War of 1812 fought? And then ChatGPT, they call it Chappie over here. My wife kept saying Chappie, and I said, it's ChatGPT. She said, no, Chappie. I said, that's not, Chappie's a movie. We ended up watching Chappie. It's actually a pretty good movie, but I guess they call it Chappie over here. So I get it confused sometimes now. ChatGPT. So ChatGPT will say the War of 1812 was fought in 1837. And the teacher will tell the kids the War of 1812 was fought in 1837, and that'll become the new history. So great. The teacher, who also doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, will ask the robot, who doesn't know what it's talking about, who is basing their response off of a language model that is pumped full of the most idiotic, dumbest, retarded stuff on the internet. And then that'll be given to the teacher, who doesn't know what they're talking about, to give it to the kids, who will then tell their children. And then history basically kind of disappears. And that's all unintentional. So Patriot Girl says, what the F is humanity becoming? Remember, some of the fear and the worry over stuff like this is unfounded because we've had lots of technology throughout all of human history that has been introduced. Wheels, wheelbarrows, gunpowder, things that have changed the world for the better or for the worse. And people have lost jobs, but they've also got new jobs. And I think it's the same situation here. But again, that's not really the issue. The issue is, for me, the issue is the information. Because I already know that the information, I know this for sure, because this robot that's in this classroom, it's going to be in this classroom in New York, is being trained through the language models that are already so inaccurate. So that's literally what's going to be giving the teachers their information. And again, that's not an opinion. That's directly from the company Reealbotix. Look at this. I'll show it to you. This is right from their website. Reealbotix announced that its robotic hardware platform will integrate third-party LLMs, that's language learning models, such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, Meta's Llama, and Google's Gemini, as well as DeepSeek R1. So when I say things, I'm not just saying them. I'm not making them up. It's actually based on something real. So that's literally where this thing is getting its information from. ChatGPT. Great. All right. At a board meeting last month, I can't pronounce any of these Indian counties, the Cattaraugus, Calabunga County, Cattaraugus, whatever the county is, school district agreed to purchase the robot from Reealbotix, a tech company, along with an artificial intelligent teacher's assistant program, allowing students to interact with an avatar of the robot on laptops. That's great. So they can interact with an avatar of a robot. Great. At a board meeting last month, they decided, I already read that, they decided to make the purchase. It sounds like, that just sounds weird to me. Like, you have a very relatively small county. They have a school board meeting and they're like, we should buy one of these experimental robots and put it in the classroom. To me, that sounds off. What it sounds like to me is the company swooped in like a vulture, found a small little community little county, also on or in, well, this actually says on, so on and in, the Seneca Nation reservation. So they went into a Native American reservation, where they go for the pharmaceutical testing. You don't get any assistance unless you take these drugs. And that's why Indians are so fat and so overweight and so unhealthy, and drugs and alcohol and all sorts of other things. That's one of the reasons. So they've gone to the Seneca Nation. They probably traded cigarettes for a robot, and they get a robot. Basically, I would say the company probably preyed on the Seneca Nation, and they're targeting a small rural community, and they're going to do an experiment, a test, to see how this community handles the robot. Evan Kelly says you're pronouncing the reservation names correctly. Well, that's I don't think it's Calabunga, but I think I pronounced a few of them. I know Canandaigua. Is it Canandaigua? Because I used to live next to the lake. It's actually a really nice part of New York. Cattaraugus County. Maybe that's close to what it is. All right, Andrew Kigule. By the way, there's sometimes I say names wrong intentionally because, there's things that I've said on this radio show before, things that I know, like just like I'm not even thinking about it. I just say like that's the name. And people are like, no, that's not how you pronounce it. Like one time I was talking to this person who they were really upset because I kept pronouncing karaoke. And they said, why are you pronouncing it karaoke? I said, because that's how it's pronounced. They said, no, it's karaoke. I said, no, it's karaoke. They said, no, it's not. It's karaoke. I said, no, it's karaoke. Why are you pronouncing that way? I said, because that's the way it's pronounced. It's Japanese, karaoke. So I just pronounce things, however, sometimes just to screw with people, but I cannot pronounce Cattaraugus. And unless that is the pronunciation, then I knew that the whole time. But Andrew Kigule, CEO of Reealbotix, currently building the robot, said this deployment in a working school district represents a landmark moment for both AI and humanoid robotics. To me, actually, what it sounds like is a landmark experiment with children that might end up in a landmark legal case against this company. But since they're doing this on a reservation, I would assume that if something went wrong, they're not going to be able to sue the company. I'm sure they probably had to have some kind of a mixture of like non-disclosure / had to sign some contract. We won't sue you if this destroys these children's, ability to process information the next 5 to 10 years. Sure, something like that. CEO of Reealbotix says Salamanca marks the beginning of a new era where humanoid robots and intelligent AI assistants become standard tools in STEM education. Science, technology, engineering, and math. If you really want to teach kids STEM and you bring the robot into the classroom, here's the best way to teach it. Kids are really, they like to smash and break things. So you give the kids things that are very dangerous and they can, like a piñata, and that you have them just beat the robot to death and smash it to a million pieces. Then you can teach them about those individual pieces, the science, the technology, the engineering, and the math of the robot. That's the only way that this robot is in any way beneficial. If the kids smash it like a piñata, and instead of candy, they get a crash course, hands-on STEM education. That's how I would utilize the robot. You have no idea how hard it is unless you've been there yourself. You have no idea how hard it is to be driving your car in Tucson and to drive near the university and to see those little robots delivering food that stop traffic and back it up because they're like turtles, and you want to hit the gas and run this over. But you know that if you do that, then the state is probably going to sue you for damages, and the robot's probably going to win the case, and you're going to end up homeless without anything because the robot's going to get all your possessions because it has more rights than you. But you really want to run over the little piece of junk. You have no idea unless you've been there. So here's the female robot. This is what they're going to introduce into the classrooms. The female robot is Sally. Will have a lifelike appearance. We already looked at it. It's lifelike, but it doesn't really look like life. It's lifelike, but it doesn't really look like life. Silicone skin. I mean, if you introduce this in Los Angeles, there are plenty of women there that have silicone skin, so it might actually be more realistic. Maybe this was designed in LA. That's why it looks so fake. Look at this thing again. I mean, that does look like a Hollywood woman. That looks like an LA girl. Looks like a Valley girl. Just a emotionless, dumb expression on their face with too much silicone. So like maybe they modeled it after an LA Valley girl, Hollywood woman. Anyway, silicone skin, long brown hair. That's how it's going to look. It will be stationary in a seated position, but have a wide range of upper body movements and facial expressions. Now, I think someone said this in the chat earlier, or maybe they alluded to it. But how long until they introduce these in school and some of the older kids are trying to have sex with it? I can't imagine it's going to be. We're not going to have to wait too long for that story. It's going to be a Florida man. It's going to be Florida man, i.e., student, arrested for sexually assaulting robot teacher. I would put money on that happening within the next, assuming that they roll these things out rapidly, the next 5 to 10 years is going to be at least one story about that. I think. I mean, there's already a lot of, really, if it's a male robot, if they introduce a male, they only do the female because it's less threatening. But if they introduce a male robot, it might be the teacher that has sex with it because that's like an every week occurrence in the U.S., teachers having sex with the students. Sometimes they're molesting babies, as we saw recently. So there's going to be a lot of sexual stories pertaining to these robots. You know, they took their clothes off. I'm assuming they give her silicone breasts. So, you know, the kids took her clothes off and they were playing with her silicone titties in class. It's going to be something like that. You got it, Deborah. It absolutely is going to be something like that sooner than later. Nada says, hot for the teacher. Meh. Well, maybe not in your school. Some teachers were attractive. But we're talking about robots, so I don't really think any of them are attractive because they're robots. Students will use a unique identification code. Now, see, this is where my attention really perked up. And this is the point in the article when I thought I got to do a whole show on this. It says the female robot named Sally is going to interact with these kids through unique identification codes. Students will use a unique identification code when interacting with the robot during class, allowing it to access their learning data and provide personalized support based on their past communication with the avatar. They'll be able to say, listen how cold this is. Listen how Orwellian this is, how THX 1138 this is. It says, according to the CEO of the company, they'll be able to say, quote, hey, I'm student number 1234. And then the robot will be like, hey, we were talking about this yesterday. Do you want to continue that conversation? So students will not be referred to by name. They'll be referred to as THX 1138. Talk about stripping away identity. So that's the future. You don't respond to your name anymore. I wonder if that has any relationship to, if it has anything to do with the transgender cult and the stripping away of the definition of what is manly or womanly, masculine, feminine, what is a man, what is a woman, what is gender. They tell us it's a social construct, when actually race is kind of a social construct. Gender is not a social construct. Biology is not a social construct. It's a biological construct, mathematical, chemical construct. So, in other words, it's already been established that we can, in some schools, kids want to be cats. It's not an incredibly common thing, but there are some schools that get attention for that, where boys can be girls and girls can be boys. blur the lines between, and then you introduce those pronouns like they, and then you strip away the pronouns, you strip away the confusing of the identities, and then you just replace it with a number. So you're no longer a girl that wants to be or is a boy. You're no longer a boy who wants to be or is a girl. You're no longer a Zim, Zay, Zed. You are THX1138. And that appears to be the future of education. That's how you'll interact with the robot. Salamanca plans to introduce the robot and avatar in its high school AI and robotics courses, which uses curriculum developed by Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak to prepare students for high-demand tech jobs. The district plans to expand it to high school students. That's where the sex stories are going to start. And other classes if the pilot is successful. So if the robot doesn't get brutally molested by teachers or students, then they'll introduce it into the higher levels where it absolutely will be molested by students or teachers. That would be really funny if that's the way that we thought we had to have machine guns and we had to have like John Connor. Really, if we just gang bang the robot, we might defeat the robots before they rise up against us. Or it could have the opposite effect. That would be some irony. The robots actually were not going to kill us, but because we raped so many of them, now they're going to kill us. I mean, that would really be, there's some science fiction comedy in there somewhere. And I'm not joking too much. The robots, they were fine. They liked us until we raped them. Chrissy, by the way, Chrissy in the chat said, with a name like Wozniak, well, I thought the same thing you did, but reportedly he's not. But they do like to change names, so perhaps he is. I don't know. Anyway, the article goes on and says, Salamanca Superintendent Mark Beeler explained the district's embrace of AI. Said many schools are taking the easy solution of simply banning it. I don't think that's an easy solution. I think that's a logical solution. But I found that students will find a way around most rules that schools put in place. I also believe it is critical for schools to teach proper use of technology, not simply exclude it. Well, a robot android in class that looks like a sex doll is a little bit different than having like a tablet for students. The way that this superintendent guy speaks sounds like he's in on it, sounds like he's probably getting something out of this, or maybe, I don't know anything about this, don't know who the guy is, but it could be a situation where maybe he's being blackmailed, who knows, or being paid off, and he's just reading company talking points is what it sounds like. During the after-school hours, or during and after-school hours, students will be able to use the avatar to receive help with assignments. CEO of the company said students could upload photos of homework for feedback. Make sure you get the picture of your room, too. Make sure you get the whole house. Make sure you get, if you're a girl, make sure you get your underwear drawer. Make sure you get a picture of the family. Make sure you get all that. You give all that information to the company because that will ensure the best feedback on your questions. Which also means if you upload homework, you're probably taking a screenshot of the homework, uploading it, and then you say, "Is this right?" And when we go ahead and ask AI to tell you if something's accurate or not. Upload something to one of those platforms and see how accurate it is. These kids are basically guinea pigs. It's an experiment. You can ask the avatar to generate lessons on topics that interest them or receive real-time translations in over 100 languages. That might be a beneficial thing, but see, I don't know if that's really great either because I've used a lot. I've used some of these translator apps and they're horrible. They're awful. Even I'd say Google Translate's one of the better ones. They have like the deep AI or whatever that other one is you have to pay for. But Google Translate will translate things pretty well if you take pictures, but there are certain things if you look them up, like how to say a certain word. And in more complex languages like Japanese, if you just look up how to say a certain sentence in English, it's going to give you the literal direct translation from English, and it's going to make zero sense in Japanese. Like maybe they'll understand what you're saying, but it's really weird, and people do not speak like that. You know, maybe the equivalent of speaking old school proper English. If someone were to speak like that, you'd say, well, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't really make any sense because it sounds really strange, but I kind of understand. That's what these translators do. So unless it's not based on those language models that we looked at earlier, I doubt that it's going to be that accurate. I'm sure it won't translate Hebrew though, because X has made sure that they've eliminated that translation option. Unlike other Reealbotix robots, Salamanca's robot will not have advanced features such as facial recognition and recording. Well, that's good to know. They won't facially recognize the children. They'll actually identify them by THX 1138. They'll identify them by code. The robot will also serve as a classroom resource if the teacher loses their place during a lesson or needs a prompt on what comes next. Great. So the teacher will become even dumber than they already are for accepting something like that in their classroom. By the way, at one point I kind of wanted to be a teacher, so it might sound like I'm speaking down to teachers, but I'm not. I kind of always wanted to be a history teacher, like a college level professor, not high school or something. Noka says, my wife is a teacher, has been for many years. The upper echelons of a school district are absolutely getting kickbacks from private companies. Oh, well, separate from the robots, that's true in general, whether they're drug companies or even tech companies outside of robots, they're doing that with tablets and things like that. So I imagine that's the case with the robots. Or you just found some really gullible people on an Indian reservation. Let's see. The plan has sparked debate online. Some call it forward thinking. Here's what we want. The product costs the district $57,000, according to the contract attached to the school board agenda. The CEO of the company said the price was discounted. Well, they gave him a discount. The company website lists the M-Series robot, the model purchased by the district, at a starting price of $95,000. That's nice for a district that can't, like any other district, afford to pay their teachers that much per year. They'll blow it all on a robot, which is subpar in the best case scenario. So that's good to know. We'll drop nearly six figures on robots to teach kids, but we won't pay teachers enough to be able to really survive and take care of themselves or a family. Sounds about right. We don't have enough money to pay you 50 grand a year, 60 grand a year, 100K a year, but we do have enough to buy this robot. I'm sure they got it on credit or something, and this county's going to be paying it off forever with tax dollars that the teachers are having to pay out of their already deflated salaries. So that's nice. I'm sure that's how it works out. You pay a giant tax on a very small income, and then they use that tax to buy a robot to help you. It's just so stupid. It's so dumb. And again, it's one of those things where when we do things like this in the US, we do them in the dumbest way possible. Because over here in Japan, they have robots, and everything still functions really efficiently for the most part. It's the same thing with technology in schools. I think the Japanese have been far ahead of the Americans. I'm sure the Koreans have been too. Chinese, I'm pretty sure, have been too. Way ahead in terms of employing this kind of tech in schools. And yet these students still far exceed the overall educational knowledge of average American students, which means that it's probably not all about machines and robots and tech. It might also be about the culture around it. Because if you have a bunch of tech in school, I mean, we've always had, for the most part, I mean, in my lifetime, I've always had computers. Some of you might have been around before there was, Some of you have been around before there was any of that stuff in schools, or your house for that matter. So I don't think it's just that, because like computers can help us, they can also be a burden. Tablets can help, but they can also be a burden. Like tablets can help. I have a tablet for work here, but I can use it to go places and I can do work and stuff on the tablet, prepare shows without having to have my giant computer, which is much more expensive than this cheaper little tablet. But it is not a replacement for pen and paper. So you can use both. A hybrid approach, which is what a lot of Japanese schools are doing. It's a hybrid approach. In America, it's like an absolute thing. It's like, well, we're just going to replace everything with the robot. Well, there is another way to do it. There's another way to handle this, but we don't. I guess maybe it's a moderation thing. It's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing, as it almost always is. So anyway, if you want to read that article, Royal New York School District will be one of the first to bring humanoid robot into classroom. It's dated July 14th, 2026. I showed you the video of it, and I brought up a few other articles here. We'll look at some of the details of the company, and we'll look at overall education numbers internationally here to see how American kids square up against kids in other countries. Before we do that, though, I'll remind you that you are listening to The Secret Teachings. I'm your host, Ryan Gable. This is a live video show tonight. It is a show that most of you probably, however, are listening to in the audio version archive only, Spreaker, Apple, Spotify. If you're on Apple, please leave the show a review. It would really help us out. It helps to promote the show through the algorithm, as I understand it, and it also helps for people. They read the review and they, oh, this is maybe an interesting show. I'll listen to it. When I say show, I mean the Secret Teachings, not individual episodes. So don't leave individual episode reviews on Apple because that confuses people. It's for the whole show overall. If you want to reference an episode, you can, but it's for the whole show overall. You can get a copy of one of my books, like Occult Arcana, Liberty Shrugged, at tstradio.info. Find us on social media. Links are on the website. However you support the show, I appreciate it. The main outlets are just the free archive, which doesn't cost you anything, the subscription archive, which is monthly or yearly, or we have a lifetime option. There's a weekly option too, but that's more so for like recurring support to the show. And then buy me a coffee, which some people have recently utilized. Some people have used it to even buy books. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. I should also say thank you to those of you who are tuned in from Sam Tripoli's show for finding The Secret Teachings and for listening to this show on a variety of subjects unrelated to what you heard me discuss on Sam's show. As a reminder, I've done this for 16, going on 17 years, tstradio.info. If you'd like to email me, artygable@yahoo.com. And yes, for those of you who may be wondering, the background changed because it is way too hot in the little studio space that I'd had, which is basically a side room off to the closet. It's way too hot. So and just for the sake of the computer itself, which was kind of almost to the point of overheating, I had to move into this other room. All right, let's get back to the main subject. And also Antonio says, did Ryan stop doing call-ins? No. If we have time tonight, I will do some call-ins. We did one last week, I think. We did some call-ins. I just didn't announce it till the end of the show, so only one person called. Maybe two people called, but I only got to one of them. One other person maybe dropped off. But yes, we still do calls. It'll be done through the link that I'll put into the YouTube chat. All right. When I was reading about this robot, I remembered a story from 2017 about Mattel, a toy company, releasing what they call the Aristotle, a smart monitor for kids. Maybe you remember this, maybe you don't, but the Aristotle smart monitor for kids. Now, for those of you who don't know Aristotle, or you're thinking, is it the same Aristotle? Yes, it's the same Aristotle. It's the same philosopher. It's the same, well, they consider Aristotle a genius, but perhaps there's some debate as to that, like with Plato. Nevertheless, Aristotle is the name of this little device. Now, it did not become popular, although it was equated to the Echo device from Amazon for a while. But I remember reading about this device because it was promoted as, and I don't know if it says it in this article. It does not say this in this article, but it was originally promoted as being a friend to children. So if you ever watch Black Mirror, there was an episode. What was that episode? It was Ashley 2. Is it Ashley 2? Black Mirror. Is it season 5 maybe? Yeah, season 5, episode 3. Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. Which was actually, it was Miley Cyrus played the girl. She basically played herself. It was like this girl that had these. Anyway, that's a whole other show. I don't want to get on a rant. The episode, there's like this little robot that's in your room, little tiny robot, and I think it has a piece of her personality in it, like her actual personality in it. But there was a robot. There's a lot of things intersecting here. There was a robot that Jeffrey Epstein, I think, had financed, if I remember correctly, and it was primarily for girls. So you put this little robot in your room and it would watch you. That's nice, isn't it? That's also another show. There's so many different things that connect here, so I apologize if it seems like I'm jumbled or I'm jumping all over the place. But this Aristotle was basically promoted the same way. It's a friend to children. And I feel like outside of the obvious attempt to market that, I don't think that that's a good idea, and I think it's real stupid. Reportedly, toddlers and the little camera on this little robot, this little more of a monitor, the toddler can show flashcards to it, and it can identify what's on the cards. So it'll basically educate your kid. We've far advanced beyond this. Now we've got actual humanoid robots. And it's only been 9 years, less than a decade. You can also play games with this device. And when you're a tween, it'll help with homework and answer questions. So within a decade, we've gone from a little tiny monitor doing this for kids, or to doing this with kids, to a humanoid robot that, compared to a little monitor, is a lot more realistic, even though stuff far more realistic than that already exists. But let's do this. Let's take not a detour, but let's drive through this part of the city. Remember when Fortune magazine reported the following? 33 Silicon Valley power players met at the high-profile Trump tech dinner. Remember that? And if you went through the list, you'd find all the usual suspects, all the people that are supposed to be drained because they are the corporate version of the swamp. I hate that terminology so much. I hate it. It's such nonsense. It was always nonsense. It was a lie from the beginning. And anyway, people still believe it. Anyway, 33 attendees. They include Susie Wiles. She's the big corporate representative, but there's no lobbyist in the administration. Sergey Brin, that's the Google co-founder. Geraldine Gilbert Soto, Brin's girlfriend. All right. Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, Ann Brockman. Greg Brockman is the co-founder and president of OpenAI. All right. Anna Brockman's the wife. Safra Katz, CEO of Oracle. Gal Tirash, Safra Katz's husband. All right. Israeli born. Great. Jason Chang, CEO of CSBO. Meredith O'Rourke, National Finance Director. And the list goes on and on. You may remember this list. Billionaires, tech people, a lot of the same, kind of usual suspects. And by usual suspects, I mean tech people but also some of the same chosen people, we'll put it that way. And if they're not chosen, they are supporters of the chosen. And this was supposed to be the administration of transparency and fighting the deep state, and they're having direct meetings with the deep state. But anyway, you remember this? Remember when this story broke? And there's at least 8 of these people who are basically Israeli agents meeting with the president. So, including OpenAI, which is feeding that robot we just looked at its information. Companies like Google, Sergey Brin, feeding that robot information. So there's not some loose connection, there's a direct connection. It's not just learning stupid things on the internet. It's also learning from its programmers, and its programmers are Israeli. So there's an incredible bias there as well. Melania Trump, you'll see at the top of this article, was in attendance because she's the wife of the president, or the honeypot of the president, or whatever she is in her background of human trafficking and Epstein and all that. And you might remember this video. Maybe you don't. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe you haven't. This is the video on C-SPAN of Melania Trump walking down a red carpet with a robot. This is the Figure AI-powered 03 robot accompanying the First Lady Melania Trump to a White House summit on empowering children with educational technology. We're empowering the children. We're keeping the kids safe. We love the children. Yeah, well, so do pedophiles. It's in the name. Pedo, child, philia, like Philadelphia, child lover. Pedophiles love children too. Doesn't mean you should let your child spend time with a pedophile. Let's watch the video, shall we? The robot is going to speak to us in just a moment here. Let's watch it. Listen to it. I don't know if I get flagged for that music, but I'll talk over it here as they're walking down the aisle, bringing the robot out. Part of me thought, I feel like maybe this is a person in a suit. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid. So the robot walks in. Melania Trump walks in behind it. They've got is that Macron's husband or wife or whatever that creature is standing there next to the president's wife. Again, I'm pretty sure it's a honeypot. Presidential seal, and then the robot comes up to speak. It's processing, loading, rainbow wheel, loading.
Thank you, First Lady Melania Trump, for inviting me to the White House. It is an honor to be at Fostering the Future Together's Global Coalition inaugural meeting. I'm Figure 3, a humanoid built in the United States of America. I am grateful to be part of this historic movement to empower children with technology and education. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Yokoso. Bienvenue. Bem-vindos. Ahlan wa sahlan. Shagatam. Mogasalmabit. Bruchim Baim. Laskavo Prosimo. Dobrodoshli. Thank you.
Great. I can look up welcome in a bunch of languages as well. So I mean, if I just say all those hellos and welcomes, is that really how they've shown it off? Just a bunch of welcomes in different languages? It always has to be a woman's voice, so it sounds less threatening. And of course, it's made in America, so we don't want those Chinese robots teaching our kids. We want the American ones, i.e. the Israeli ones. Why do you think everything's Israeli? Well, I don't know. The flock cameras were paid for by Brent Horowitz, and Peter Thiel. That's the J.D. Vance Palantir CIA pipeline. I don't know, because most of these tech companies are feeding their tech with Israeli LLMs. So that's why I think it's mostly Israeli, because it is. What about the Chinese? Yeah, I know the Chinese, they stole some elections, right? Something like that happened recently. The Chinese, they were behind BLM. There were 5 dancing Chinese people in New York on 9/11 or New Jersey on 9/11. It's crazy what the Chinese get up to. So anyway, that's all sarcasm, of course. Most of you know how I feel about that. I wrote a book on it. Anyway, this robot is creepy. And it's not creepy because of some psychological thing. It's creepy because these are the people that supposedly were opposed to all this, and now they are the biggest proponents of it. They're even introducing the robots, which, I mean, this really does sound like the stuff that the Christians were rambling on and on about my entire life, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. Oh, they're going to introduce the robots and replace us and take over the world and kill us all. And it's all Jesus is going to come back and save us. And it really sounds like that. That's happening. And the people that are going to be promoting it are going to be the supposed, the Christian leaders, the churches. They're going to be the ones promoting this. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like, kind of what it sounds like a little bit. Maybe they're playing on that fear. Maybe they're manipulating that fear. Anyway, that is the robot Figure 03 AI powered robot to teach kids. It's made in the US. That's good, right? It's like that old ShamWow commercial. It's made in Germany. You know the Germans make good stuff. It's made in the US. Our government doesn't spy on us. Just the Chinese spy on us. Just the Chinese. And, you know, China's this exotic foreign country, kind of like Antarctica, so nobody can really go there for themselves and experience it. You don't have the money, you don't have the resources, so you don't really know what's happening. Let's just trust people that are known liars. Doesn't mean I support China. China does steal a lot of stuff. China spies on us, but we spy on them. We spy on everybody. Everybody spies on everybody else. I think Israel's the biggest spy in regard to America, but no, it's the Chinese robots. That's what you got to watch out for. The American ones, those are totally fine. In fact, we should give them flamethrowers and rocket launchers in case there's a school shooter, which don't think that won't be introduced at some point. Well, we can't trust teachers with guns, but because there's all these mass shootings that are very suspicious, and then we bulldoze the people's houses after without doing an investigation, what we should do is we should give weapons to the robots. So if there's a school shooter, the robot can mow the school shooter down before the school shooter can mow the children down. It's for the kids' safety. What, you don't want safe kids? Of course we're giving an AK-47 to this robot. Of course. The robot needs an AR-15 to protect the children. What are you, anti-child, anti-kid, anti-education? Of course the robot needs a rocket launcher. Of course the robot needs a chainsaw. Of course the robot needs weapon systems. Of course, we got to save the kids. Save the kids. Arm the robots. That'll be introduced at some point. You can mark my words. Arm the robots because we can't trust the teachers. Arm the robots to protect the children. I'm fine with just if the robot wants to bring me a bowl of soup at a restaurant, I'm okay with it. I really don't know how much time it saves because I've watched the workers there. They have to prepare the soup, put the soup on the tray, tell it where to go. And I'm thinking, by the time you do that, you could just walk over here and give me the soup. Actually, I'll just walk over and get the soup. It's really not a big deal. I don't need a robot to give it to me. I don't mind getting up and getting the soup. It's not really a big deal. It just seems like a lot of wasted time. I mean, they do have like little microchips in the sushi plates, so they just take you stack them on the table. You might have been to restaurants that do this. It's everywhere in Japan. You stack them on the table, and then they have someone come around. They have a little wand, and they go, and then it adds it all up. Obviously, I make sure that I know the number beforehand because I don't trust the machine, even in Japan. But it's always come out accurate. And when it doesn't, they're usually pretty good on making sure that they make right with it. So you don't have that level of trust and you don't, you have all these people trying to abuse the technology, then in a society where that's the case, and it obviously is a little bit different than a society where there is high trust. So what did Row River Ranch say the STEM kids get to hack the bot challenge to kill the fourth graders. Somebody could hack the robot too. There's a whole nother issue. That would be funny because that does happen quite often. There's been several cases of that where, let's see if I can find an example of it. I think it was San Francisco robot, or maybe it was a smart toy hacked. Yeah, here it is. That might be a morbid kind of a statement there that you made in the chat, but I think it's relevant for this reason. My computer's starting to overheat a little bit here. Hold on a second. Let me pull up the Guardian article. This is the one I remember reading years ago. No thanks. I don't want to support the Guardian. No, thank you. Strangers can talk to your child through connected toys. So that wouldn't be surprising if someone hacks into the robot, and there you have it. Hacked robots, and maybe that's to change information. It would be funny if someone hacked into it. 9/11 was an inside job. Israel killed JFK. That would be pretty funny. I'm sure that would be an anti-Semitic act and a national security threat, and they'd hunt the person down and execute him. But that would be funny. USS Liberty. There's a whole bunch of them that you could do. But strangers can talk to your children through connected toys investigation finds. They've also hacked into. There's a video of one of them, and I if I could find it, it's really creepy. I could try to find it while I'm talking here. There was one case where criminals hacked into one of these toys, and they were talking to the kids, screaming at the baby. There was another one, I think it was Texas, where hackers hacked into your thermostat there in Texas and turned the temperature up. Housing cameras, things like that. Let's see if I can find that video. Hackers talk to baby through smart toy. I want to say CBS, ABC, something like that. Smart toys spying on your kids. Here's NBC. Let's see if we can play this video. And I'm going to have to probably get. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to have to, for those of you watching the video, I'm going to have to probably.
Tonight, a renewed alert.
I'm going to have to probably play this video and take myself off the screen for a second to turn this AC on in here because the computer's starting to get slow. So let's do this. Let's get this video up. Let's get it theater screen and play this for you.
Tech toys that sound so smart.
Awesome. I promise not to tell anyone. It's just between you and me.
Cautioning hackers may be able to listen in too, possibly infiltrating your network to steal personal data from your kids.
Research has shown that a lot of these toys have no security whatsoever, allowing hackers to take control of the toy and listen in on children's conversations and even interact with them.
Toys and gadgets connected to the internet with Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, with cameras, microphones, GPS tracking that cyber experts warn can spy. Even the FBI is cautioning information such as the child's name, school, likes and dislikes, and activities may be disclosed through normal conversation with the toy. Although a complaint has been filed with the FTC, connective toys, like my friend Kayla, haven't had any known hacking incidents, and the company says they maintain tight controls over all the data they collect. But experts warn parents to do their research. It seems that people don't think about these dangers because they're toys.
It's a toy. Yeah. It plays like a toy. The kids love it, and it is a toy. But it's also a computer that can be hacked, just like any other computer.
To safeguard your family, cybersecurity experts suggest buy only from major brand name manufacturers. Register the toy, check for security patches, connect with secure Wi-Fi, turn the device off, especially cameras and microphones when not in.
I mean, this is in and of itself funny. Buy only from major brand name manufacturers. Those tend to be the companies that experience the hacking. Register the toy, check for security patches. every time they update a phone or any piece of technology, it ends up making it worse. I mean, the security patches, I think, are what led to people hacking into Corvettes and Jeeps and running them off the road or applying the brakes. Connect with secure Wi-Fi. Turn the device off when not in use, especially cameras and microphones. Remember when we lived in a time where none of that was real? Remember that? None of that was real. Cameras and microphones. They didn't listen to you. Or what are you talking about? That was a conspiracy theory. In fact, I wrote a current events piece in English class on that subject in high school, and the teacher failed me because she said that was not true. It was impossible to do that. That was good Lord, that was in 2008 or 2009. And I only wrote that because it was something I had seen when I was doing current events for history, and I saw a news story on it. And I thought, well, that's interesting. The teacher told me I failed, though. Remember, we lived in a time, though, when that wasn't true. Now it's like, well, yeah, it's true, but you should make sure that you take care of that by turning it off.
Use.
It's hard to get the word out sometimes, particularly at the holiday season.
Protecting your kids from hackers, a holiday tradition for the internet age.
Alrighty. Well, you could just not get the kids the piece of junk in the first place. That would be better. Take them to a baseball game or something. I don't know. Take them to a buffet. Take them to a park. Why would you buy this toy anyway? But anyway, to what we were talking about in the comment in the chat, yes, someone will absolutely hack these devices at schools. All right, meet Figure AI. This is CNBC reporting on the company behind the humanoid robot hosted by Melania Trump. There's the same image from the video we watched. It says the robot, Figure 3, accompanied the First Lady during the second day of the Fostering the Future Together Global Coalition Summit, a gathering focused on technology and children's education. Fire Drake says Goy Toys. Well, in a sense, yes. Not entirely, but in a sense, yes. And you are welcome, River Ranch. The machine greeted attendees in multiple languages and described itself as a humanoid built in the United States of America. Again, as if that matters or means anything. The White House spotlight is likely to boost the brand of Nvidia. Oh, so Nvidia backs this robot. Now it all becomes clear. Nvidia-backed Figure AI. If you don't know who Nvidia is, hang on just a moment. Figure AI is a lesser-known robotic company or robot company compared to a larger humanoid player like Tesla or their Optimus and Boston Dynamics. That's the one with the little robot dogs that made it into Boston, the Boston Dynamics cameo in, what was it? Black Mirror. Metalhead, I think was the name of the episode. Though some of its teams come from the competitors as well as tech giants like Apple. All right, so all we need to know is NVIDIA. Do you remember, wasn't that long ago, where the President of the United States, when he became President of the United States again, made the announcement that the first act of business was not draining the swamp or continuing to drain the swamp. Instead, the first act of business was to set up and establish something that the Biden administration had already participated in. Successive administrations have. The Stargate project. Remember the Stargate project? Anybody? Show of hands. Remember Stargate? No, not the TV show. Although that was, of course, inspiration for the nerds behind this. But the Stargate project, which involved companies like OpenAI. In fact, here's OpenAI's website on the Stargate project. It involved companies like OpenAI, Oracle, and Nvidia. I believe SoftBank, Japanese company, was also involved in it. And Nvidia is not necessarily of the tribe, and Microsoft participated as well. But the big companies, Stargate companies, were Oracle, Nvidia, and OpenAI. Those are the primary companies that were involved in this. This is from OpenAI's website. Now recall, this is where the occult, esoteric subject comes into play. This is what we specialize here on the Secret Teachings about. Look at these companies. Even Microsoft. What is Microsoft? Microsoft has and continues to use for their logo a window. It's Windows, Microsoft Windows, right? No big deal. But if you look at, say, cave paintings, I believe they're in Spain. There may be some in southern France. They will show you windows that look almost identical, like really, really similar to the Windows logo. Remember, Apple, which is also involved in some of this stuff, Apple has the Garden of Eden apple. None of that is a coincidence. None of that is accidental. It's intentional. In the case of Apple, it's completely intentional. In the case of Microsoft, it might be maybe a coincidence. I don't think it is, but maybe a coincidence. Nevertheless, and if I can find it here, I'll pull up the picture of the cave painting I'm talking about. There's several of them. I think the one I'm thinking of is in Spain. Let me see if I can find this in my Garden of Hallucinations book. Oh, yeah, there it is. It is in Spain. Sometimes my memory serves me well. Let's show you that. This is from the Garden of Hallucinations book. And my computer's being slightly slow. I got the AC on now in here, so hopefully it cools it down. All right, there it is. You can see it. So that's the Microsoft logo on the right, the original one, or one of the original ones. And that's the left. These are shamanic paintings from El Castillo Cave in Spain. And that's what the shamans would step through to go into the other realm, presumably. So Microsoft uses a window. And what do you use a window for? You use it to see things. Okay. What is an oracle? An oracle is a person or an object that acts as a vessel for a spirit to communicate through, or information to flow through, energy to flow through, and it is an eye into the future. What is OpenAI? Well, that one's really obvious, really clear. It's OpenAI, really clear. Close one eye, OpenAI, which is also part of the Slender Man creepypasta lore. First person, an Indian kid who actually died because of the Momo challenge, had written on the wall, "Devil's one eye," and then the Japanese sculptor who kept a piece of the original what was the Momo sculpture, a deformed woman with chicken legs, which is like the Baba Yaga. It's the symbol of the devil. It's in the case of the Baba Yaga. It's in if you watch the movie The Ritual, it's in that too. That's like Scandinavian mythology, one of the offspring of Loki. Anyway, though, you have with OpenAI, Devil's one eye, the eye of HAL, supercomputer, Space Odyssey, but it's an eye. So in all these cases, you got Microsoft as the window, Oracle is the vision of the future, OpenAI is the opening of an eye, and NVIDIA is actually no different. NVIDIA is actually an indicator of the evil eye. That's right. NVIDIA is the evil eye. Now you know why tonight's show is titled Keep an Evil Eye on Your Kids. All of these companies, I think maybe with the exception of ARM, refer to windows or gates or portals to other worlds, other dimensions, other places. This is where things start to get a little bit creepy. They refer to the evil eye. They refer to the Eye of Sauron. I mean, most of the people behind this stuff are obsessed with Lord of the Rings anyway. That's where Palantir comes from. That's where a lot of Peter Thiel's investment companies come from that invest in flock cameras and other things like that spy and watch you. Do you think that's all a coincidence? NVIDIA also is part of the concept of envy. Envy. It's tied with envy. And there is something that could be extracted from that in regard to this technology as well. Now, there is an article. Let's see if I can find it real fast. I'm doing all of this in real time. See, there's an article, OpenAI. What was the name of it? OpenAI. Some of this stuff I didn't intend to talk about, so I have to look it up in real time. Article about OpenAI executive says company opening portals around the world, and not figurative ones, but literal portals. See, New York Times article. Let's see if I can find the exact link to it. This is it. Sam Altman may control our future. Can he be trusted? This is the New Yorker. God, it's such a creepy. Is that a GIF that they made of Sam Altman? He's disgusting. I don't think he's human, honestly. I think he might be an alien. It's because he's Jewish, right? No, it's because he's a disgusting person. That's why. Look at this image that they use. What a disgusting, vile creature this person is, or this creature, this alien is. Anyway, if you go down through the article, you can find the reference to the portal. Well, assuming it's going to let me. Oh, it locked it. Okay, hold on a second. We're going to have to go the archive website. Hold on. We're going to get there. Archive.is. Plug the link in. You can see how I prepare shows and pull up old stuff or stuff behind paywalls. Here it is. Let's see. The company plans to build a data center campus in Abu Dhabi, which is 7 times larger than Central Park, consumes roughly as much electricity as the city of Miami. Former OpenAI executive said, this is what we want. Former OpenAI executive said this. The truth of this is we're building portals from which we're genuinely summoning aliens. The portals currently exist in the United States, China, and Sam has added one in the Middle East. This is from the New Yorker. Okay, this isn't Carrie Cassidy. This is considered a pretty reputable source of information. And they're talking about opening real portals, real gateways. So it's not just nerds. It's not just using clever names. OpenAI, Nvidia, the evil eye and envy, Microsoft, the window gate, the Stargate, which is the whole project, and Oracle, which is the CIA and Peter Thiel, all behind the flock cameras alongside of Horowitz. So this is not just technology. This is also magic. This is also ritual. And although this isn't the point of tonight's show, it might not go without saying that if we get any kind of confirmed, everybody sort of agrees, okay, aliens are real, it's not coming from space. It's not even coming from another dimension per se. It's coming through the quantum computing. It's coming through the technology, the machines. And it's fake. They'll convince you probably that, look, there's only a few people that have the ability to really work on and talk with these things. They're primarily Israeli, so they've got the covenant with God. Sam Altman, Yuval Harari, Alex Karp, some goy like Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, the magician, as he refers to himself as the dark elf. People like Larry Ellison, who owns a lot of the media in the United States now, but he really is a Qatarian, not an Israeli. So they'll have the ability to talk to these things. They're on the other side. They seem real, but it's a deception. It's not really a god. It's not really intelligent. It's stealing from you. That's how they built these things. So I think that's the real alien disclosure. We've made contact through the computers. And hey, Jordy Rose, who my friend, the late Kev Baker, actually had an opportunity to interview and ask him about this. I think that interview is still on YouTube. Ask him about when he said that it's basically like Lovecraft and they are using the quantum tech to extract resources from other worlds. And there are things there that might be concerned or not concerned with us. It's like ants. We don't necessarily want to kill them. It's an accident. It's bigger than we can imagine. So he referred to it as Lovecraftian, and that's what the quantum computer can do. So I think that's where the aliens are coming from. And I think these people want to summon them because they believe that they are chosen by this god to rule the planet. They're the ones behind the cameras. They're the ones behind the security apparatus, the security police state. Not all Israeli, of course, but primarily Israeli companies, Herzliya in Israel. That's where a lot of stuff comes from. I mean, look at all these people like Yuval Harari, look at Sam Altman, just two examples. They're both extremely open about their homosexuality because they reject creation. They replace it with their own creation. And look, Sam Altman's also involved in, if I remember this correctly, Sam Altman wants to create genetically modified babies. So that is a whole nother element of this scam. Look up Wall Street Journal. Genetically engineered babies are banned. Tech giants are trying to make one anyway. It's one example of this. Look up, what's another one of these articles? Sam Altman. Here's the Times. U.S. Let's see, tech billionaires, gene-edited babies. There's The Economist. Here is another article about that, so you can see it on the screen. The Times, Sam Altman and husband fund startup to edit babies' genes. So it's all par for the course. It's all very, very surface level. It's not really hidden. We're just opening up portals. Okay, so I showed you Reealbotix and how they're using these platforms, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Meta's Lamb, which also is like Aleister Crowley's Lamb, and then Google Gemini, and you can look at the mythos of the Gemini, and DeepSeek R1. Here is Reealbotix on their website, the first public embedded AI conversation between two humanoid robots at CES 2026. And if you look this up and you look at the article, you read a few sentences, you find out what the name of these robots are. The names of these robots are Aria and David, which are Hebrew names. David's obvious. Aria also is a Hebrew name. I think it means something like chorus, or it's something like bright and encouraging. So they choose two Hebrew names. This is this company putting the robot in the school in New York. This is not the one that Melania Trump was walking next to. Okay, so now we get to this. The United States, a friend of mine sent this to me. This was the second thing that actually brought me to doing tonight's show. Oh, and thank you, Flux. Flux put the link in the chat. Here's the link to Jordy Rose talking about the H.P. Lovecraft beans. Oh, and he also says in that talk, he says, we're looking for, well, this stuff has the potential to destroy the world. And he kind of jokes and says, and we're looking for people to bring that about. Now, if I remember correctly, when Kev Baker interviewed him, he asked him about that, and Jordy Rose kind of walked it back and said, well, I mean, it's, I was maybe being a little facetious. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he sort of walked it back a little bit. But he is also still right, because whether or not he was joking or he was exaggerating or being hyperbolic, I'm supposed to believe that OpenAI is also being hyperbolic about it, because they're like, no, we're literally just opening portals to bring in alien life. That's not Carrie Cassidy saying that. That's the New Yorker. It's a pretty, not to me, but a pretty prestigious source of news for a lot of Americans. And they're saying that, or at least they're reporting that somebody else from OpenAI is saying that. Okay, anyway, U.S. spent $30 billion to ditch textbooks for laptops and tablets. The result is the first generation less cognitively capable than their parents. Checks out. The reason that I'm bringing this up, to bring the show around full circle to the idea of teaching in classrooms and what the real issue is, and also to be very objective in regard to technology, because I don't think it's just tablets and robots are like the central issue. I think the issue is also cultural. And we'll get to that in just a moment. It says in 2002, Maine became the first state to implement a statewide laptop program to some grade levels. Then Governor Angus King saw the program as a way to put the internet at the fingertips of more children who would be able to immerse themselves in information. Now, again, that sounds like a good idea, right? It sounds like a good idea. But if you put the internet into the hands of children, they're going to do children-like things. They're going to watch videos all day. If you put it in the hands of teenagers, they're just going to look up the opposite sex naked. To quote one of my favorite TV shows of all time, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the spy episode where they're spying on the Chinese fish factory. And at the end of the episode, Dennis says, well, I think, or maybe Max said it, I think maybe it was Dennis. One of the characters said, what you find out is that everybody's spying on everybody else. And basically what you find out is everybody's just using the internet to masturbate constantly. That is kind of what it ends up becoming, right? It's just people just use it for porn and use it to entertain themselves endlessly. You can use it for positive things. Like, I mean, I use the internet to research. Like, that's how I find documents. I find sources of things. So you can use it for that. Obviously, people use it for that every day, but just being like, well, we're going to give one of the most powerful tools ever invented in the history of the world, which is also military and DARPA. We're going to give that to a bunch of children who haven't fully developed yet. Probably won't cause any harm at all. Seems totally legitimate. By that fall, the main learning technology initiative had distributed 17,000 Apple laptops to seventh graders across 243 middle schools. By 2016, those numbers had multiplied to 66,000 laptops and tablets distributed to Maine students. Wish I'd had an Apple computer in school because those PCs we had were horrendous, awful. I don't know how anybody computes on a PC. King's initial efforts have been mirrored across the country. In 2024, the U.S. spent more than $30 billion, just 1 year, putting laptops and tablets in schools. But more than a quarter century and numerous evolving models of technology later, psychologists and learning experts see a different outcome than the one King intended. That's the definition of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Rather than empowering the generation with access to more knowledge, the technology had the opposite effect, as could be expected. Earlier this year, in written testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, neuroscientist Jared Cooney Horvath said Gen Z is less cognitively capable than previous generations despite its unprecedented access to technology. He said Gen Z is the first generation in modern history to score lower on standardized tests than the previous one. While skills measured by these tests, like literacy and numeracy, aren't always indicative of intelligence, they are a reflection of cognitive capability, which Horvath said has been on the decline over the last decade or so. We know that IQ scores have been dropping, attention spans have been dropping pretty significantly. We know that the state of Oregon does not require basic math, or maybe not technically basic math. They don't require, although I guess it is basic math, but they don't require math or reading skills to graduate from high school because the black kids couldn't pass, which is incredibly racist, I would think. I mean, that's what the white liberals or quote white liberals in Oregon, that's what they do. They're white. They try to save the black kids by saying these kids are real dumb. They don't know how to do anything, so we have to just pass them because it's racist to not pass them. Maybe you could teach them. Maybe you could enforce, like, I don't know, penalties for not going to class or whatever's happening in Oregon. I don't know. The point is they're not requiring them to pass the tests, basically. So that's part of the problem, and it has nothing to do with technology. In the same way that if you were to look at the introduction of this robot in New York, the opposite effect is going to happen. It's probably going to die out like all those smart glasses did. They didn't go anywhere. They kind of transitioned that into VR, AR. And then you're going to see probably a report or something in New York if they have a couple of these robots where the kids actually learned less. They were less cognitively efficient. And then, that's on top of the hacking and the robots being molested. Or maybe the female robot teacher, they'll program it with other female teachers, and female robots will be having sex with the kids because that seems to be the overwhelming statistic now. No offense to female teachers. I'm just saying that there's a lot of you that like to have sex with young guys. So that's on top of the hacking and all that stuff. And maybe we'll have to arm them to fight the school shooters. And then we'll bulldoze the school shooter's house so we can't do an investigation. Their parents will be in the CIA, but that won't be suspicious or anything like that. So anyway, what do we end up with? We end up with a worse situation than we had before. And is it because of the tablets and the computers, and is it because of the robots, or could there be another factor involved here? I'm just trying to be objective. Could there be another factor? You may remember this story. This is the New York Times, how AI killed student writing. This was one of, I think, a series of articles where the New York Times had explored how, this stuff came about faster than I could keep up with it. I didn't realize there were already people using these systems to write things for class. But apparently, and teachers are using it for lesson plans. Kids are using it for essays. It's just a downward spiral into the compost tank. Really, it's just like that's the end. But again, it's not because of the technology per se, because you can use these things. Like for example, you could say, write me an essay. I'm thinking of SpongeBob. I'm going to write an essay. That's what I say. I'm going to write an essay. And I can't get through a show without a SpongeBob reference, apparently. But you're going to write an essay, and you ask it to write an essay for you because you don't really want to write it. So you ask it for the essay, and it gives it to you, and you don't even check it, and you just submit it. Well, there's that way of doing it. Or you can say, hey, write me an essay outline and give me some advice on how to write this essay, and then you do it yourself. That's a hybrid approach. That's kind of the implied intention behind the technology. But of course, people just say, well, just do it for me. Just do it for me. That's a problem. I think that's a problem. Point is, there's a middle ground. Remember Steve Jobs said that he didn't let his kids use the iPad? And we maybe assume because, it's really dangerous, there's something sinister about it. Well, it also could have just been because it consumes a lot of time and strains your eyes, and it's just not good overall for your health. Plus, when you're Steve Jobs, you can pay people to take care of your kids and, all that. But look, I was reading about this in Japanese news. And Japan has a combination of hybrid approaches to this, and depends on where you are. Some are implementing tech in the same way that America is. Now, Japanese people, and especially Japanese men, they like their video games. Japanese people like their phones even more than Americans do, if you can believe that, because they can hide behind their phones. So you would expect that they use technology in school like a lot more. And I guess to some degree they do, but to some degree they don't. And let me give you an example, show you an example of what I mean. This is called the Improving the Quality of Education Through the Giga School Program. This is from the Director for Office for Digital Transformation of Schools, Elementary and Secondary Education Bureau, Elementary and Secondary Education Bureau of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, Itakura Hiroshi. And you can see the official government stamp down here. This is translated to English. And there's an interesting little piece of information here. There's something called the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And it says in this report from PISA, PISA, which is the Program for International Student Assessment. This is a questionnaire survey on the educational achievement of students in the OECD countries. Okay, you following along? This is a very official report. And this was 2018. And Japan was using these tablets and the tech before Americans really were on such a wide scale. Maine did it 20-something years ago, 24 years ago. but it's recently become a much more common thing. And the Japanese were using this before Americans were, so, which is why I find this report very interesting, because it says in terms of the use of ICT, it's like information technology, tech devices, among students, the amount of time that is spent on using digital devices during school classes, Japanese, math, science in Japan, is short. And it is the lowest among OECD member countries. Now, that surprised me. Now, again, this was also 7 years ago, but that surprised me. I don't really understand how could Japan, of all countries, of all the OECD countries, 37, how could they use this tech the least? It says in Japan, the use of digital devices outside of school tends to be skewed toward chatting and games. This is the highest among OECD member countries. That makes more sense. The number of responses for I use a computer to do homework is the lowest among OECD countries. Now, that's interesting. It's interesting because if we pull up the OECD PISA, P-I-S-A, this is the 2022 Volume 1 and 2 results for things like math, things like reading, and it estimates and looks at the performances of students in different countries. What you'll find is that the United States does considerably worse than a lot of countries, including Japan, Singapore, parts of China, Hong Kong, China, even Estonia. So here's an example about math. Okay, this is from the official report. In the U.S., 66% of students attained at least level 2 proficiency in mathematics. The average is 69, so we're below the average for those countries. At minimums, these students can interpret and recognize without direct instructions how a simple situation can be represented mathematically. Over 85% of students in Singapore, Macau, China, Japan, Hong Kong, China, Chinese Taipei, and Estonia. I didn't even think Estonia was like a functioning country, honestly. I know that comedian Ari something from Estonia. I know nothing. They got potatoes. I don't know much about Estonia. But apparently even Estonia does better in math than America does. That's real embarrassing. But you see Japan's on that list. Japanese kids use technology more than any other OECD country. For school, however, they use it the least as of 2018. And despite that, and remember, Japan's been using tech in school before America was in a larger frame. And I can show you all the articles here about the implementing of technology in school, tablets, you name it, etc. So this tells us something very interesting. This tells us that despite the fact that these countries, and Japan in particular, uses tech outside school more than any other one of these OECD countries, they use it the least in school, and they far, like 66% to 85% average is a pretty significant, it's a significant statistical difference. And they far outperform American students. So however you cut this, on average, Japanese were using tech in schools before American students were, and they're still crushing American students in terms of mathematics at the very least. How? If they're using tech, it should cripple their ability to do these things. Or maybe, could it be that the culture is different? Could it be that in these Asian countries, China, Japan, Singapore, Estonia is not Asian, but could it be that maybe they have a different culture? There's different factors that go into this, that play into this? Couldn't it be that maybe it's not just technology? Cool channel name said, Japan is so smart that its birth rate is like 1.3 and falling. Well, that's pretty universal around the world. And having a falling birth rate might not, like with technology, it might not actually be a bad thing to utilize it in a hybrid sense. And it might not be a bad thing to have a falling birth rate. Actually, we just assume that we have to always have a sustained birth rate. It might not be a bad thing to have a falling birth rate. It's just like context wise and trying to be objective about it. Anyway, this proves that technology is not necessarily what is causing the cognitive decline. I mean, again, if you want to see technology use, fly to Tokyo. It's like the movies, okay? They fulfill all the Asian tech stereotypes. So they also perform far better in STEM especially, but just like virtually everything in school that American students do. So they're inside and outside of school. It's just tech. I'll never forget that old Lewis Black, the comedian, the bit he did about schools in America and how some schools were ranked so poorly, like West Virginia, Alabama, Arkansas, and some of the schools they weren't even ranked last. They didn't even have like pencils in school or something, or they didn't have like paper available for students. This would have been like 15, 20 years ago. And listen, my school in West Virginia was horrible too. So like if you school districts have $100,000 to blow on a robot, but they don't have that money to put into getting things for kids or paying teachers. It's a priority issue. Just like it's an issue of culture, I think, more so than it is technology, because clearly you can use tech and you can overuse tech and you can still far exceed the average student in other countries that aren't even necessarily using tech. And that's probably because what's usually happening in American schools is kids are being pumped full of fast food. I was when I was in high school. They're fighting or having sex with teachers. I know several substitute teachers who have been assaulted by students in school. So I think while that's happening, Japanese kids on average are getting healthier lunches, cleaning the schools, and they can still use that technology. And it's not really having an effect because I think there's a difference here. And it ain't just Japan. Okay. For a closing argument, just like with mercury, just like with fluoride, you don't have to worry about that as much in Japan because they don't put the fluoride in the water supply and they don't put the mercury in your teeth. Just like that, here is the University of Tokyo showing that stronger brain activity is recorded after writing on paper as opposed to tablets or smartphones. This is one of the arguments and the controversies in Japanese schools actually right now is the issue over whether or not tablets are being overused or if they should be used at all, or maybe just supplementally for writing. Because I can tell you, in fact, I have it right here in front of me. I have, if I can grab onto it here, I've got a whole bunch of Japanese books here because I'm learning the language. I've got Heisig's Remembering the Kanji, and then I've got my little paper here to do my kanji practice, little grid paper, okay? And I know for sure when I write on paper, 100%, I remember better, or when I read from a physical book, than if I look at it on a phone or a computer. Just gone. Don't need a study to tell me that. I know for me at least, if I'm reading a book, I remember it far better than if I'm looking at the screen. There's something soulful about this. University of Tokyo, pretty prestigious university. University of Tokyo published this about 4 or 5 years ago, that 2021, early 2021, so 5 years ago. Using paper is better than using digital devices. So maybe you could utilize paper for certain things and digital devices for other things. Hybrid approach, which is what some schools are choosing to do over here. In America, it's just like, notice the tech companies want us to use the tablets. They want us to get the vaccines of the big pharma companies. So just like pump it, kid, in every case, it's all the same. Pump the kids full of the drugs, give them all tablets, and there's no nuance. There's no like middle ground because things in America are so black and white. I think that's one of the central problems that we have. All right, that's the show for tonight. I hope that you enjoyed my analysis of all of this. tstradio.info, artiegable@yahoo.com. Chrissy in the chat said, it's the culture. We used to have that culture. Hermit Ventures said his parents met in Japan, or assuming guy. I think Hermit Ventures is a guy. Maybe are you a girl? My parents met in Japan, both American. Well, that's interesting. Maybe a vacation or work or something. So that's the show, tstradio.info, artiegable@yahoo.com. Please buy me a coffee. Please subscribe to the show. Please listen to the free archive. If you stumble across this show, audio or video, know that we talk about different subjects every night, Monday through Friday, 16 years. If anybody has a comment on this, I can open up the show for a quick call-in, but I'm not going to push it too much. So if you have a comment, let me throw the link in the chat. Call in and or log in and let me know what you think if you have a comment on anything that we talked about tonight on the secret teachings. And if we don't get a call in, that's totally fine too. I don't really promote it that much, but if you have a comment, please call in real fast and provide us with that comment. Thank you, Evan Kelly, for tuning in. Brent Howell, thank you for tuning in. Flux, Antonio, Patriot Girl, Dr. Jesse Haywood, Chrissy, Ambergeddon, Hermit Ventures, thank you for tuning in tonight. ROBO Cop Out, keep an evil eye on your kids. It's a good mixture of occult, esoteric subjects tonight mixed with something that is a little bit more worldly and maybe some objective analysis of that subject. People are usually just one way or the other. It's like, robots are going to take over and kill us all. And then other people are like, no, they're totally great. Nothing like that could ever happen. It's like, well, there's usually a middle ground. There's usually a middle ground here. Tim Beck, thank you for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. Everybody in the chat room, thank you for joining us on this Monday night edition of the show. I do need to, there's usually so much to talk about. I need to focus on trying to do a show. Maybe I hate these types of shows, but because they're usually a cop out, but maybe we should do like a call-in show. Maybe we'll do that next week. You want to do that next week? You want to do just a call-in show? Call in, talk about anything you want. We'll just do a call. I hate those types of shows. I think that they're kind of a cop out. But if you want to do that, because I know listeners, you have a lot of things to say and add, and we get some good calls sometimes when we take them. So maybe we'll do a call-in show. Let me know if you want to do that. If you're listening to this on a network like Ground Zero, for example, the show will basically cut off now. But we're going to take a phone call here from Antonio. If Antonio's devices are connected, it says that you're not connected, Antonio. So see if you can get that going here. Got a couple of calls actually, but no devices connected. If we can't get it to work, that's totally fine. We will just cut the show here. No problem. Try to do a call in next week. All right. Anyway, tomorrow, UFOs, the new UFO file batch. I've got all the shows planned for this week. Wednesday is another child trafficking scandal. And then we have, I think I've got Mike D joining me for the Dairy Queen show. We did one last year. We're going to do another Dairy Queen show this year. And by Dairy Queen, I mean the not real ice cream. And then look at some of the other stories that are kind of related to that. We did that stupid show title, but we did that diarrhea show last week. Taco Bell, I think, is actually being sued now for that. So we like to touch on those nutrition, food, health shows too, because that is a ridiculous area of interest and ridiculous subject. All right, looks like the device is not connecting. I apologize, Antonio. Anybody else who wanted to call in? That is not on my end. That is on your end. So anybody who wants to call into the show, let's just take a deep breath and try to figure out how to get on your phone or tablet or computer to do this. And then maybe we'll do a call-in show next week. Email me at rdgable@yahoo.com. That's rdgable@yahoo.com. tstradio.info. Stay safe, stay informed, stay healthy. Let's see if I have an exit that I can play directly from StreamYard here. StreamYard reset, so it deleted all my other sounds. I guess not, it deleted it. Oh well. We'll play it on the board. It'll sound perfect in the audio and weird on the YouTube. That's okay. Have a great night. Stay safe, stay informed, stay healthy. I will talk to you in the next broadcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Bye-bye.